had become bound together in honey. So the next day, the young princess saved the bee. Her courage, just like geisha, did not melt away, you see.
Tell me more, Mommy.
Just like geisha, the story goes farther.
New geisha with honey. Its formulation binds the soap, so it lasts and lasts, just like mom's love.
Welcome back to Weekend at 1. Let's have that conversation now surrounding the political nominations taking place in the country and what Kenyans really can learn from this and what political parties must address as Kenyans, of course, wait to see who they will nominate to contest in the August 8th general elections. In studio with me, my panelists, Dismas Mukua, Gabriel Bukachi and Bonke Komwai, who is the Jubilee youth leader. Many thanks for joining us in studio. I'd like to begin with you, Bonke. President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is the Jubilee party leader, this morning did issue a statement with regard to the state of nominations that we saw yesterday. Shambolic is what has been used to describe that. Your thoughts on whether the president's address was satisfactory in terms of addressing the concerns that had been raised?
It was. I want to tell Kenyans that you see, we had seen this before, and the president, on behalf of Jubilee Party, we had advised NASA to allow IEBC to conduct primaries, and they dismissed it. You know, they were thinking that maybe the president was interested in ODM issues. We knew very well that Kenyan political parties we have in this country, they don't have capability to run any nomination or to run any election in this country. So we came to realize the other day that Kenyans love Jubilee so much. We were shocked when Kenyans came out to vote for aspirants to show their love and loyalty to the party. It was beyond our control. The repercussions we are seeing tonight, they're the fruits of NASA. When we advised them to allow IEBC to conduct this, because one, IEBC is an independent body. So
you're blaming NASA for the shambolic nominations witnessed yesterday?
For both,
in Jubilee?
Absolutely. The reason as to why I'm blaming NASA, about this issue, remember we came with this idea of allowing IEBC to run the primaries, and they dismissed. They said that IEBC does not have any capability to run any nomination in this country. So we were asking them, if you cannot trust IEBC, do we expect some angels to come from heaven to conduct our elections in this country? So the repercussions we are seeing, we knew it will happen. So as Jubilee, that is not the issue now. We have to deal with what is going on the ground. We are dealing with this issue. We are trying to manage it. I will also take this opportunity to apologize to Jubilee supporters and the aspirants and lovers of the party through the president to accept our apology. We are working on it, and by Monday, before Monday actually, the secretariat, I'm not in nomination or whatever, I'm not one of the election board, whatever committee, but my position in the party, I would apologize on behalf of the Jubilee Party.
All right, so whether it was NASA to blame for this, whether IEBC should have carried out the primaries, the question now is the lack of internal party democracy, even within the Jubilee Party, seemingly unable to carry out a nomination exercise. Then how are we to trust them to be able to run a government, so to speak? But let's hear from Dismas. First of all, just a rebuttal of what Bonke has said. They're blaming NASA for this.
You know what Bonke has said? It's a sad humor that you can actually blame NASA for stuff that Jubilee has got 100% control. And you know, this is typical with political parties in Kenya. Wherever there's a situation in your political party, instead of admitting liability, you are clutching on straws. So essentially what Bonke is doing is actually clutching on straws. I'm not sure whether President Kenyatta or Raphael Tuju would repeat the same. But when you go to the Jubilee elections, what came out yesterday is very shocking, even if you don't know politics in Kenya. For instance, if you've got a polling station with 1,000 registered voters, how can you print 200 ballots only? What are you suggesting to the people? And you know, in the electoral process, when all the agents are gathered at a particular polling station, the first thing they want to do is to establish the number of ballots. So you've got 1,000 registered voters, and then you've got only 200 ballots. Then all the agents immediately become suspicious. They'll start asking, where are the rest 800 ballots? Where are they? Can we see the 800 ballots? So in the absence of that, then people create suspicion, and then you say this electoral process is going to be compromised. So now you begin to wonder, how would Jubilee, a political party, the ruling political party in Kenya, print on average 50% of the ballot papers, knowing very well that in the Jubilee strongholds, as soon as you win the party primaries, you are as good as elected to whatever position you are running for. So for me, I think nobody can ever forgive Jubilee, even if you're a member of NASA, even if you're not a politician, because political parties in Kenya are funded by taxpayers. So actually one fails to understand. And if there's anybody from Jubilee who had ever participated in an electoral process, we know democracy is expensive. You print 100% ballots, so you'd rather have a turnout which is 50%, then you've got another 50% spoiled ballots, or rather unused ballots. And that's what one of the candidates has said. As Avada Boschole saying, we now want to see the ballots which were not used up in flames. And when you look at the newspapers today, you actually see some of those ballots up in flames. Nice. And that's horrible for their brand. And I think for all Kenyans, whether or not you love politics, political parties in Kenya are funded by the taxpayer. So yesterday when I saw Raphael Tuju saying that we estimated we would have about 50% voter turnout, so we printed 50% of the ballots, I was shocked. And this morning when the president confirmed the same, I was further shocked. And believe you me, the nation is traumatized for that. Then number two, I don't know how it happens that in a third world country like Kenya, we don't respect jurisdictions. Like, for instance, why would the President Kenyatta address Jubilee members from State House?
Nairobi, something that has received a lot of criticism, really.
Yeah, because Michelle, as the name suggests, State House, you are supposed to be discussing state issues. Now, for political party issues like what we have today, the president should have gone to his political party headquarters in Pangani and address his voters from there. And you know, the president cannot claim that he has challenges with logistics. Because you know now the state pays for his movement, for his security. If he wanted to go to Pangani, it's just a phone call away and everything is done. He can even use a chopper. So it's important for a nation that we start organizing ourselves to create a big difference between party matters and state matters.
All right.
What the president has done today...
We'll get to you in just a minute.
The president was having lunch and he had to address this issue.
This is not the first time he has addressed Jubilee matters
but
from
president
State
stays in State House.
And it's something that we will discuss in a minute.
Yeah.
But Gabriel,
he was having lunch,
first of all, just to respond to Bonke's claims that NASA is to blame for what's being witnessed in the Jubilee nominations. And secondly, just to preempt as well, because ODM nominations are taking place. We've just seen the case of Sambweni, where supporters seem to have been told to go home without any official word from the ODM Elections Board. Your thoughts on that entire process?
Thank you very much, Michelle. Maybe to respond to my colleague here, is that the Jubilee as a party, they have got no agenda to talk about in this republic. Their main agenda is NASA. Whenever they go for their public meeting, it's NASA. When they are in their private meeting, it is NASA. And that is why he's doing that extension in this particular forum. And perhaps he does not understand the law, because the Political Parties Act and the Political Parties Act says that the primaries, it's particularly affairs of the party. And there is no way whereby the ODM supporters or the NASA supporters, we can interfere with Jubilee. What Jubilee have done, they have had the most shambolic nomination not in Kenya, in East and Central Africa, and it is the most shambolic primaries in the world.
I hope you have a basis for this.
I have the basis for this. And one of the things that I want to put in place is this. When ODM, we started doing our primaries, Jubilees were all over castigating us that we are not going anywhere. But from what they have done, it's very simple things, the logistic part, because there is no way you can print with the ballot papers that are not enough. So what we want, but we understand from NASA, there's the other side of Jubilee, they don't have experience. They have not even elected a village elder. All the members of Jubilee are nominated, others are in interim. It is the only ODM party in Kenya that has done grassroots election. So as much as I'm not happy that Jubilee they have had a shambolic nomination. As a Kenyan, I'm sad. because we wanted to get, we wanted Jubilee that they've been claiming they will set standards of election in this country. But what they have done, there are only about 8,000 candidates, and they cannot organize for primaries for 8,000 aspirants. And they want to lead this country.
All right, let's move away from Jubilee, because like you mentioned, ODM has been conducting grassroots primaries for quite a while.
Yes.
But looking at the way the primaries have been carried out, you know, it can also be described as quite shambolic, so to speak. So what is the situation there?
In ODM, before I come to that, our nominations, there is this political act that says that money should be given to political parties. And according to the laws, the money that is supposed to be given to political parties is 0.5. But if you do the mathematics, ODM is getting 78 million per year, which is less. Because if we do it according to the Constitution, it is supposed to be around 400 million. So that the ODM, we are not perfect, but we have done a good job. We had our own issues, but we have sorted them because we have established dispute and resolution committee. But so that in case of any shambolic or in case of any event that is not adding up, we have the corrective mechanism. So if this Political Parties Act, and it was overturned in Parliament by the tyranny of numbers, so for this political act to work effectively, it is the responsibility of all Kenyans to know how this money is supposed to be distributed. We had a problem in Busia. Those problems are being addressed by the National Election Board. They agreed to do a repeat of election, but one of the aspirants thought otherwise. And in ODM, it's a democratic party. If an aspirant decides to go otherwise or to go as independent candidates, we have got no choice to tie him down.
We'll come back to that. Dismiss.
Michelle, again, you know, we must run away from the fact that we have political parties in Kenya. We have special purpose vehicles in Kenya. And every political party has got its owners. Like, for instance, ODM, without doubt, it's Raila Odinga. When you talk about Jubilee, it's President Kenyatta and his deputy. Everybody who is in Jubilee is there simply because of President Kenyatta and his deputy. Now, when you look at the underlying issues as to why the party primaries are a mess, it's because of commercial interest. When you look at Jubilee, part of the reason why they're in a crisis is because nobody wants to spend money buying 100% of the ballots. So for them, their prayer is, let's have a very low voter turnout so that we print only 20% or 30%. And one wonders whether or not the president will actually go the extra mile in order for investigation. So as we establish, how are the tenders given out? Were they supposed to buy 100%? And if they were supposed to get 100%, why did they go and get 20% less than that? That's extremely important. And then number two, there is no way as a nation you are going to make progress and grow to the next level if you are going to allow mediocrity in the political party process. Because when you have a political party primary which is unstructured, it means that mediocrity will come to the top, and you will have members going to the Senate, National Assembly, or governor, or maybe governors, people who are of very poor quality that cannot even pass a serious legislation. And then the third item, and probably more important, it's now very clear that we need to have IBC do our party primaries. Because in other parts of the world, like in the US, it's the state which does these party primaries. If you have party primaries, then you not give these political parties the opportunity to engage in mischief. And all we need to do is review our constitution to ensure that when IBC does the party primaries, if there's anybody who is unhappy, there's an independent tribunal to address those disputes. Because as we stand right now, if IBC is on to do the party primaries, it will be the same IBC to address those issues. Now, when you go back to the Jubilee party primaries, I wonder why they're treating it in a very casual manner. Because to me, it seems like it's first come, first served. You know, a polling station has got 1,000 registered voters, then you bring in 300 ballots, meaning that the first 300 people will be allowed to vote. If you come after 300 guys have taken a vote, you'll be told to go back home, like what has happened in Msambweni. You've seen a number of people being told, go back home. And you know, this means that political parties in Kenya treat voters with a lot of contempt. Can you imagine, like for some instances in Kiambu, and a woman aged 100 years old wakes up early in the morning at 5 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock she's at the polling station. She stands at the queue for hours on end, and she cuts her ballot around 4 o'clock in the evening. And then a few minutes later, there's an announcement from Jubilee headquarters that, wait a minute, we've nullified this. We want you to come back again. This is so sad that politicians in Kenya, the political class, including this gentleman who wants to go to the Senate, they think that Kenyans is just a bunch of sheep to be told to jump, in whatever manner they want. And I think we must run away from this.
And eventually, Dismas, Kenyans will get tired. And the question is, the nominations, as have been seen now, are likely to have an impact on the electorate, but also even on the parties themselves. In Uasin Gishu County, for example, we saw Governor Jackson Mandago, who is, a close ally of Deputy President William Ruto, but he was not very happy with the Deputy President following the manner in which the nominations took place there. We even had, supporters and Jubilee Party members saying that they might consider jumping ship and now being NASA supporters at the end of it. So are we likely to have such an impact on the electorate?
Now, that's a very important observation that you raised, and you cannot afford not to connect it with Governor Isaac Ruto, because Governor Isaac Ruto joins NASA on day one. Then the following day, you're having a Jubilee primaries, which people describe shambolic. But I think the right term to say is that it's a national scandal that needs to be investigated. And then now you have governors from Ruto's stronghold, which is in Rift Valley. And essentially what they're doing is they're flexing the muscles. Those governors are telling the deputy president that, wait a minute, you could be having your preferred candidates, but we have the masses. I watched the proceeding with Governor Mandago, and I became a nervous man. Because, there was a huge battery of people who had come to vote for him. And the two issues came to my mind. The levels of unemployment in Kenya, that at around 1 o'clock, you've got so many people coming out to cast their ballots, and all of them were standing. But at the flick of his finger, all the guys were seated on the tarmac. And you can imagine the tarmac is so hot, but the guy sat on the tarmac, and they were following instructions from him, which leads us to another interesting point, that in fact governors, if you're not careful, governors are a threat to national security. Because when you have a governor with a lot of resources, and most of them are stolen from the public coffer, so they can spend the money as they so desire, controlling people in that kind of manner, it can make you very nervous, especially for governors who come from border areas, who can easily get weapons from other countries. It's very easy for them to start militias, and as a nation we get into trouble. But I think after the party primaries, two people need to be very worried. The deputy president must be a very worried man, because when you have a sycophant like Governor Mandago, all of a sudden daring the president, looking at him in the eyes and telling him, you've got people in your office who want to select candidates for us, that's really... It's unusual, and I suspect the deputy president is having a nightmares wherever he's sitting.
All right. Just before we wind up, just before you give your closing comments, Gabriel Bonke, let's hear from you. We've had all sorts of demands being made by Jubilee aspirants now from Electorate, currently some from Nyeri County, and they want fresh printing of ballot papers, they want a cleanup of the party register. But are these realistic demands, considering that Jubilee only has about 2 days to get their act in order?
I don't want our aspirants to start blaming the president and his deputy, like the way Dismas is trying to put it. This issue, the skirmish has been seeing on the ground. The Secretariat of Jubilee must take responsibility for what is going on down there. And it's a big challenge to Honorable Tuju, because it is true Jubilee is the ruling party. And we cannot allow anyone to tarnish the reputation, the good reputation of President Uhuru Kenyatta.
All right.
Now, another thing Kenyans should understand, some aspirants who have sensed defeat, they are the ones who are now committing this political suicide by paying youths to cause chaos. Because if, for instance, look at what happened in between Ojamong and Otuoma. Otuoma was the first person to go on street, he started complaining about the primaries in this county. Then the other day, he dismissed ODM and relocated is now an independent party candidate. Now that tells you his level of loyalty is questionable in ODM. It is true, these parties, we will have to investigate how you've been working with your political party. So if you see guys are fighting, because not all counties in Kenya had issues. The president, we decided to do it because of now the impunity, and Kenyans were complaining about the primaries in all our polling stations. So the decision was made, and we decided now to cancel all the process we've done so far. Another thing I want Kenyans to know, the propaganda the opposition has been propelling, now they can see the fruits. I heard Dismas was saying, oh, some 100 years old woman woke up very early in the morning to go and cast her vote. You see, the issue of nullifying this nomination process is not the wish of Jubilee. We knew we will experience whatever we are experiencing tonight. And I want to urge our brothers from ODM. At times, they cannot criticize everything we are saying as the party. We need to agree. We need to have some political maturity. Another thing Dismas was saying, President Uhuru Kenyatta, that was wrong. He was addressing the Kenyans on Jubilee issues from State House. President stays there. He's the head of state. They wanted him to address
No.
Kenyans
That is,
from
the argument is that this is, a party
I want to
function and not a
protect
state
it.
function.
I want to protect. Allow me to protect that by saying this. The president slept in State House yesterday night, and he woke up, took his breakfast. By the time he was having, that's why you always have breaking news. Something can happen, and you will cut us short to address the nation.
All right.
So president had to address that. He could